Alright guys, the vlog topic I've picked about to think about today says patriotism and anti-patriotism. Again, with a lot of these subjects, when I'm initially writing them, when I'm selecting them, like, oh, I should talk about this subject, it's dense, there's a lot to talk about, there's a lot of meat there to be said. When I'm initially writing it as a subject on my list of vids to make, I probably have an idea of what I want to say. I know more about it in that moment that I'm writing it down. Like, oh, there's a reason to make this vid. There's a lot to say here, and then obviously the list stays with me of vlog topics that I got to do, and I get around to it like now, and your mind goes blank, and you go, oh, why did I write that? So you have to think about it for a bit and work out what your past self was trying to tell you, and what sort of things needed to be said. So I guess it makes you think, so it's good in that way. It makes you think about a subject that isn't actually on your mind at the time. So today I haven't been thinking about patriotism at all, but I'm like, well, it's on the list, so it's something I should cover, and I can always go back and do a version 2 of each video on a subject if I realise, oh shit, I covered that wrong, or I missed something out. Anyway, patriotism, as I know it, is a love for your country. I've talked about this before in relation to anarchism. As an anarchist or a libertarian, you can still think about patriotism, as I've said many a time, because patriotism and even nationalism emanates from the public. It does not emanate from the government. The government, like, it's not even necessarily your country that you're advocating for. You're advocating for the localism of your shared, not even shared, but your individual history in a place. I'm sure I did this from a supermarket car park once. I went deep into this subject. That was one of the messy ones I did, where I had like 1,000 different subjects in one. So I'm trying to condense now into just 2 subjects. So there's an argument to be made about patriotism being a collectivism, but there's an argument that I make, which is another one you can make, about patriotism being from the individual and not a collectivism. That's the one I like to make. You could also say, like, waving the flag, you wave the flag. I think one of my anarchist buddies on Twitter was talking the other day, is Brandon Agerist Nexus. He was saying, actually, I think, because he's in America, I think the American flag is also like, I don't know if he said a symbol of oppression or something. It's like something, I mean, that's very leftist to hear that. I'm sure he wasn't saying that specifically, but he was saying the American flag is also a bad symbol that we don't need, because it actually is a representation of the government, or the governments of the past of America, and therefore we don't need it. I was going to ask him, I think I got distracted, I was going to ask him if he was pro any flags or other flags, or flags for anarchists or flags for movements, or, you know, whether he thought it was all a collectivism or not. And there is a good case in there. Like, there is, so what are my thoughts about flags? Say you have the English flag, because I'm quite fond of the English flag right now. I'm quite fond of the St. George's flag. The part of that I see is that, well, first of all, if you buy a flag, it's your property, no matter what design is on it. Like, I could buy a fucking German flag tomorrow, a Russian flag, an English flag, an anarchist flag. They'd all be my flag. They'd all be my property. Therefore, if I set it on fire and burnt it, whether on my own or on camera or in the middle of the street, I don't know, there's probably an argument about it in the middle of the street. And I'm not saying safety, but I'm saying, like, if you're on or near someone's property, or you're in a place where you might accidentally damage someone else's property by setting a fire in the street, depending on how it spreads. I notice that when people do light flags on fire in the street, it doesn't really tend to spread that far, because there's a bunch of concrete around when the flag hits the floor and it's on fire. Just kind of people actually, I've seen leftists try and set fire to flags, and they actually have a hard time doing it. Like, they're like with the lighter, they're going, why won't it do it? Burn the flag. But yeah, I think if you've got a flag and you've bought it, that's your flag, you can burn it. It doesn't matter if it's a representation of a country, you know, it doesn't matter if it has a Jewish star on it, or a swastika on it, or a pride flag on it, or an anarchist flag on it, or a don't tread on me flag on it. It doesn't matter. You can burn it, it's yours. It doesn't mean that what's depicted on the flag, that is the collectivist part of the country depicted on the flag, should mean that everyone who's part of that nation or country should get upset or angry about it, because it's not their flag. It's their flag in terms of they think they have this symbol that defines them all as part of a collectivist group, and that's not how I use a flag. Like, there is an anarchist flag. There are actually several anarchist flags. There's about 4 good ones. You got the Gadsden snake, and maybe 5 good ones. The black and yellow diagonal.
El amarillo tiene que ver con la capacidad de generar riqueza, es decir, el oro, ¿sí? Y el negro tiene que ver con la anarquía.
The black flag, black and yellow diagonal with a Gadsden on it. The anarchist yellow A, and there's permutations where I like the anarchist yellow A on top of the diagonal black and yellow. Like, yeah, we've got a lot of good flags to represent an us, but that is not an us. Anarchists are not a collectivist group, we're individuals. So one anarchist is not grouped up with another anarchist, or you could say libertarian. One libertarian is not grouped up with another libertarian, because our ideology is individualism. It's just a sort of way of, it's not a nation, obviously, it's not a country, it's a way of espousing your views, and it kind of correlates with other people's views. Probably why there's so many different anarchist flags. It's all like diverging off into individualist variations and sects, and like, it's not really collectivist. I say, like, I like division over unity, because unity causes tons of problems, including wars, whereas division divides collectivism, and you need to divide collectivism to get people to be individuals, and that doesn't mean they can't work together or cooperate. But yeah, I've been through this quite a lot. So I think there's a case for both. Like, there's a case for the flag that represents and signals to people that you are a believer in a certain ideology, but that doesn't mean you're going to believe exactly the same thing as someone else who's part of that ideology. You just believe in that general thing, and it's a good way of signaling to other people that you're mostly with them in your viewpoint, and that you're not, for me, I'm not a leftist and I'm not a rightist, and they have their flags over there on the right and they have their flags over there on the left, but they mainly think of their flags, at least the left mainly think of their flags in a collectivist way. The right is kind of half and half. And then of course you have the national flags, and I would have a St. George's flag and I would fly a St. George's flag. And what I would mean by that personally is that I'm not in a collectivist group called the English. I'm not with all the other English people. I don't believe exactly the same thing as all the other English people, but I believe ideologically in a general thing that I like. I was born in England. I like parts of English culture. Me personally, if I could have an English flag that somehow stated that I like Victorian England, not necessarily England of the present, not necessarily England of the future, but England in the present being traditional towards Victorian values of England, and some parts of the empire, as much as you'd hate that and attach it to certain things in your mind, some parts of the empire were good, no matter how you slice it. Like, if I could say that about my personal interpretation of the English flag, then I'd fly that version of it. But it's a good catch-all to just fly the English flag, especially when the left are so against it. And that's the anti-patriotism, like the far left in particular are extremely against patriotism. And the people who actually collectivistically love their country, the far left are against that, which is kind of strange because the far left are fucking collectivist as fuck. They just want their different collectivism. Like, it's the same, it's like same as how the right wing are very collectivist in many places, and the left wing are very collectivist in pretty much all places, but they're both supposedly against each other, but technically, in my mind, they're very much the same, because they're both doing the same thing. They're just like my bad, horrific anti-freedom shit is better than your bad anti-freedom horrific shit. Is that kind of thing. And then you could go into the different sects of socialism or religion and how they war against each other, even though to an outsider like me, they're both all just the same thing. There's not much nuance to be had between them. Like, oh my god, Antifa fighting the fascists. Yeah, all I really see there are two socialist groups who do exactly the same thing as each other. Car. A deja vu is usually a glitch in the Matrix. I just saw two grey Peugeots pass me that are like exactly the same. And yeah, so I guess before I go into anti-patriotism, I'm still trying to define the patriotism thing. Yeah, I think there are collectivists on the right who would still fly the English flag as part of a more collectivist thing. Like, we are all English. We all believe the exact same thing as each other. This is England. England is this collectivist group. And I think parts of that are fine. I think the parts of that are fine are the parts that don't think England is to do with government and borders and the government state-based history of England. If they're more talking about, on the right wing, their right-wing collectivism of England is based on, we just want to preserve English culture and English history from the public, then those right-wingers are a lot closer to me than the ones who are all out for every part of English and British culture, no matter what it is, including everything the state did, all the wars we went into, every part of the British Empire, every part of British history, like all of it across the board, trying to define that perfectly, including government actions and police and army. Like, I'm against that. I'm against collectivism in general, but it's more legit for the other group, like the right-wingers who want to preserve, English culture from the public rather than from the government. Like preserving our way of life, preserving our language, how we talk to each other, things like that. So at the same time as me having a niche, I guess, minority way of waving the English flag, I'm also, part of the general feel of enjoying people waving the English flag, which does include a bunch of right-wingers who I don't necessarily agree with, and even includes a bunch of anarchists and libertarians who are of my ideology, but we agree with most things. We don't agree with everything perfectly, because we're not collectivists. So I think that's the patriotism, and you can see that there's different amounts, and like it's a spectrum maybe, or it's a different set of different factions of the patriotism and the people who wave the flag of their own country. You've got that, which is centre, anarchist, right wing, all the way over to, even the far right, which are the identitarians and the monarchists. Not the Nazis, they're far left. Get it right. Anyway, you have the anti-patriots over on the far left, mainly. Anti-nationalism, anti-patriotism. They tie nationalism to Nazism. They think the problem with Nazism, National Socialism, was that it was nationalist. And actually, no, the problem with National Socialism was that it was socialist. But, the far left of today are Marxists, or they claim to be Marxist-Leninists or Maoists, but they're Marxists along racial and sexual lines, the racial being the most important, because as soon as you take Marxism and then add a racial element to it, you're no different from the Nazis, because that was the problem with National Socialism, was that it was a socialism along racial lines. It wasn't about being patriotic for your country. That's not what the problem with that whole ideology was. The problem was it was socialism. And if you want to take issue with that and say it's wrong, well, I say if you're open-minded, go and look at Tig History's channel and look at a bunch of his vids. Specifically look at his 2 Hitler was a socialist videos and his also Hitler was a communist video, which provides proof that he was a member of the Communist Party in 1919. And they will enlighten you as to how that is the reality. And we've just been revisionized by the left all this time in thinking that Nazism was some kind of right-wing ideology, whereas actually it was a left-wing one. And as was Italian fascism, and as was Marxist-Leninism and Maoism. Anyway, before we go tangent hopping down that little back alley, get back to what we're talking about. The far left in the UK, let's use the UK and England because it's relevant right now as the basis for what we're saying. Far left in the UK are anti-patriotic. They hate all parts of the British Empire. They hate all parts of patriotism. And they hate all parts of nationalism, pushing the false idea that nationalism is to do with the Nazis, which it isn't. Nationalism is a love of your country and your nation. Unfortunately, a bunch of it in the collectivist right-wing circles gets tied to borders and government, which is not what it is. It is people and their shared history and experiences individually, where they are geographically during a time span. And then I have to wait for a cyclist. And a bus. A bus has turned up. So yeah, I think the far left are not only insane and heavily indoctrinated by Cold War resurgence, as Yuri Bezmenov describes, but also they're confused. They don't really know what's going on over with the patriotism and nationalism thing. They just seek to demonize it outright. And a very funny and strange tactical thing is happening right now featuring Keir Starmer. We had the flag parade thing, we had the raise the flag, I guess, I don't know if you'd call it movement. Some people would call it a movement. I think it's like a war strategy or a protest, because many people believe we're in some sort of civil war now of some kind. I don't know whether that's true or not, but a bunch of the right got together and did this raise the colours kind of protest thing, which I think should have gone on a lot longer to be fair. But all it was the innocent act of, I think, just raising the English flag in the country of England and just putting up a few more of them than we normally have, which produces an intense foaming of the mouth and rage and insanity from the easily offended and triggered left. And they have been doing a lot worse things all the time, up to now, before now, even featuring flags, like painting pride flags on crosswalks and things like that, which they think are little innocent things, and so why wouldn't they think it's innocent to raise an English flag in the English country? It's because they're absolutely insane and they're confused about what patriotism and nationalism is. They're trying to differentiate themselves from the National Socialists, but they're not. They're all just socialists together. So yeah, I thought seeing the right do this, I thought it was quite harmless and quite innocent, and I knew that it would provoke an intense seething reaction from the left. As much as I think the right and the left are the same in a lot of ways, there's definitely an elevation of insanity over on the far left that you don't see everywhere on the right. In some places the right, like Charlie Kirk for instance, in some places the right are quite tame, and some cases they're even quite based. I've been looking over some of the stuff that Charlie Kirk has said in his career, and I was like, whoa, actually, this guy's he's got quite a few anarchist views in there. He was pro-free speech. I think he said some other stuff that I put out on Twitter, as a retweet when I found them out. I was like, oh shit. He's not just the mild conservative guy who shouldn't have got shot and tries to talk to the left, which is a failed experiment. He's got some of these anarchist libertarian views on the side that I never even knew, because I didn't really watch his stuff before. I just kind of was peripherally aware of him as one of the big conservative names over there. I'm trying to remember how I got on this subject. And so yeah, I thought the raise the colours thing was quite tame, to be honest, quite innocent, quite harmless, would provoke a reaction, and it did. You know, it's the same level of tameness and, you know, innocentness as putting up a poster saying it's okay to be white, or it's okay to not be a communist, which is one I like, obviously. There's another one which is slightly, I hate using the word edgier, so I'm not going to use it, an attempt at confusing feminists, which is the posters that go, Islam was right about women. That's the poster. It's like black on a white background. It's like the it's okay to be white posters, but which is just black text on a white background and a sort of column just put up on a lamppost, and it is pretty innocent. It's something that makes you think. With the it's okay to be white poster, it's true, and the left has a foaming mouth rage reaction to it, going like, oh my god, this is racist because it doesn't say it's okay to be black, it doesn't say it's okay to be Indian, it's like, no, that's whataboutism. Today's subject, the thing we're showing you, is it's okay to be white. We can also talk about it's okay to be black, it's okay to be all these other things. But this is just a one subject thing, and they're like, oh my god, because it's just a one subject narrow thing. Their reaction to it is that it's trying to say something that it's not saying about all the things that it's not mentioning, which is not. So that's innocent. It's not okay to be a communist is the poster that will obviously trigger them because they're trying to achieve pure equality in communism. The one where it's like, Islam was right about women, it confuses the people it's intended for in a harmless way, and they perceive it as an attack against Islam, and they perceive it as an attack against women, but it's also like, it makes you think, and it's also like congratulating Islam in a way, and it's also making women think, wait, what does Islam say about women? I don't even know because I haven't even looked it up, and it's forcing them to think and look it up, and they don't want to look it up because the feminists don't want to know what Islam says about women, and some of them already know, and they're like, I'm staying away from this topic. And the Islamic people probably look at it and go, yeah, we are. That's not an attack against us, is it? Is that meant to be an attack against us? No, what? It just kind of, it's really, I think it's actually really clever and really smart as political, like, thought strategy, because you're just saying someone on the enemy is right about something about someone else on the enemy side who doesn't know what the previous enemy was talking about, or that they've even said this about them, and it's something that they wouldn't like if they found out. So it's really smart. I like that. But it's also harmless, and the leftist response is to immediately go, oh my god, this is about hating Islam and hating women. And you try and ask them why, and they just like, they stop, they freeze like a computer in blue screen era, because they don't know what to do at that point. They have to actually explain why, and they can't do it. And if they can't do it, then it's not true. And also, it isn't true that it's an attack on Islam and women. It's not. It's like, it's people who are very knowledgeable talking to people who are dumb. So yeah, they had that. They painted the Raise the Colours protest, painted St. George's flags on roundabouts and street markings, which made councils go, oh, we're taking these down, we've got to take these down. The councils are just far left because they're doing what the government tells them to. But their narrative, their hiding the truth lie is, we're taking these down because of safety. It makes the roundabouts unsafe if you put a little red cross on them. It's like, no, it fucking doesn't. It fucking doesn't, and it never will. The Raise the Colours and the right's responses and the patriotic people who may not even be on the right were like, no, I think it makes the roundabouts look pretty. I think it makes the road markings look nicer, and it's also a symbol of our country and where we live, and it's quite nice showing that people who like England are around in England, and it's also quite nice to offend the government and the far left, who are always doing horrendous and horrific things to the public lately, and it's all being exposed and people know about it now. So anything we can do to make them show their true colours is great. And Tommy Robinson, the guy that the leftists and the government love to hate, who's exposed mass rape gangs from North African and Pakistan and Islamic immigrants, as well as politicians and police, by the way, happening in York and Rotherham and Luton. He's spent his career exposing all this stuff. He decides to launch the end part of this Raise the Colours thing, which is a big protest where they get lots of people to speak on stage, and they get as many people as they can who like England, no matter what ideology or background they're from. They turn up. It's pretty easy to turn up with an English flag. I actually saw some Don't Tread on Me Gadsden flags in the parade there, which was pretty good. He manages to get, must have been over 1 million people. So it's a bit like, I think the last time that happened was the Million Man March against Tony Blair getting into the Iraq War. Yeah, that was the last time we saw that number of people out in the streets of London for a protest. I think was the Iraq War protest, which obviously the government ignored. That's why I don't think protests work. They will always ignore you no matter how many people you show up with. Good job on Tommy Robinson for getting like 1 million people to show up in the street as a show of force. And then Keir Starmer just sees that and he's foaming at the mouth of that, and he's like suddenly bringing in digital IDs that you have to have as a mandate to work and live in the UK, which I'm not getting, obviously, and I don't think you should get them, or anyone else should fucking get them. But they were so shocked. I think a lot of actual far-left communist groups who tried to turn up at that flag protest rally in London as a counterpoint to it, or a protest against the protest sort of thing, like Antifa and all that, they brought as many people as they could, and it was just tiny compared to the amount of pro-English people who were there. I think Antifa were planning to just show up, get aggressive with the right-wingers for a couple of hours, then just leave. But they showed up, and they were meant to leave at a certain time, and they just got boxed in by the sheer amount of English people, crowds, so that they couldn't leave in any direction because the police were fake worried about a clash, so they just like boxed them in between all the patriots. And so these Antifa commie groups were seen on podcasts saying, oh, you know, I'm kind of ashamed that we couldn't get enough people out to confront the patriots and the English. We couldn't get enough of our communists out on the street to fight against these people. And Keir Starmer, I think, was probably thinking the same thing. And so he's using right-wing language to, first of all, bring in this stupid ID card, just like he used right-wing language to bring in the Online Safety Act. And then he starts going on the side, like he's doing all this stuff, like we must reclaim the English and the British flag for the British. It can't be used as a hateful attack. And it's like, what do you mean? It wasn't even used as a hateful attack in the first place. He's saying like it's being used for racism, and they've always hated on the far left and Starmer and the government that was overrun by the far left. Those types of people have always tried to stop the English flag being flown in recent years, and nationalism and stuff, and they've been trying to replace it with like the pride. If any ideology's got to fall first, it has to be the far left, and the sooner we can make that happen, the better. They're pushing for global government and things, but that's not to say that once the far left is gone, there's not a huge amount of work and a huge fight to be done. At the same time, what we define as the far left is important, because the left and the right are converging right now. with the right's worship of government. They're becoming the left themselves. So what do you mean when you defeat the far left? You mean you're defeating the far left of 2017, and then you fight the rights who are becoming the left, who were the conservatives of 2017? Or do you mean when you're fighting the far left and you're trying to defeat them, that you're talking about both of those together and in general, like trying to stop statism? But if you're treating those two groups as separate for the purposes of strategy, then if you defeat what was called the far left in 2017 and leave the far left of the Conservatives, then at least you've got rid of half of them, say. Half of the problem. And by get rid of, I'm not talking about getting rid of them physically from the world, because they will all still remain. These are just people who think things, but I'm talking about getting rid of their grip on power, state power, but not their grip on their individual power to defend themselves and own property if they want to. But certainly getting rid of their grip on state power and getting rid of their grip on being able to violate property. So it's a very complicated subject, that, and it's very hard to keep all my thoughts in order. It's also very hard to fucking concentrate with all these cars going back and forth. The traffic picked up halfway through that video, and my GoPro started overheating. So I'll leave it at that. Sorry I couldn't find a way to make it simpler. I think I need to talk on the subject more often to make it more concise and simple for you guys. But there's obviously a lot to talk about there, and it does depend on what viewpoint you see the conflict from. Like, are you looking at this as a far leftist? Are you looking at this as a mild conservative? Are you looking at this as an extreme tradcon? Are you looking at this as a libertarian or anarchist or a normie? Like, all these things have a huge impact in how you see the issue. Like, what direction are you coming at it from? Anyway, patriotism and anti-patriotism. Thank you for watching.